We're live. Hello and welcome to the weekly Game Hump. I am so proud and so happy and so excited that you guys could lend your ears to us this week as we have our midweek chat, our midweek talkie, as we welcome you to the Game Huggers podcast. This week we are joined by Richard, who is returning once again to the show. Say hi, Richard.
Hello.
Hello. And Ari, first time on the show. How are you doing?
Doing all right.
Excellent. I'm so glad to see more people coming on the show, and we're getting a few viewers here clocking in right now. That's awesome. If you, Ari, since this is the first time you've been on the show, if you want to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you are gaming and what you're about.
All right. So, obviously, my name is Ari. I got into gaming because my parents thought gaming was a waste of money growing up, so all I had was a Game Boy Color. And now that I'm out of the house and have a job, I've compensated by buying almost literally everything that exists. Recent additions to the collection include the Bally Astrocade, which no one knows exists except for me, as well as the new 3DS small edition,
Nice.
which I imported like a week before they came out with the American version. I'm not bitter at all. And I have a very large collection of Super Famicom games as well.
Very cool. That's awesome. I love the Super Famicom. I think like more recently than before, even the more I get into the Super Famicom, the more you find that you actually like save a ton of money in comparison to like having to spend the crazy amounts that Super Nintendo games are going for now here in the US.
There's a lot of regional differences as well. Like with Mario Kart in the Super Famicom version, Peach actually gets really drunk and then throws the bottles as she's driving. Obviously took out of the American version.
Are you talking about the winning celebration? Yeah. She actually drinks the booze and gets all like tipsy. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. That's crazy.
Little subtle differences, like religious references. Obviously, they took out of it.
Castlevania.
So, hey, Richard, what are some games that you're into lately, and what's been going on in your life?
Oh, I've been trying to be more active with music stuff. I do chiptunes for anyone that's not in the know. I go by Kulor. I recently, partook in a Famicom, or rather NES music competition called Famicombo. So that was a lot of fun. Aside from that, I've been doing a lot of YouTube uploads of various old tracks that I've done. If you're interested in listening to any of that stuff, you can go to my Twitter there, where I constantly am spamming links whenever I upload stuff.
At Commodore Cooler.
Yes.
Very awesome. Yeah.
Aside from that, I mean, I've been on a giant Bomberman kick for some reason. I've been playing this thing, Super Bomberman.
I love that game. That is so awesome.
The original one. It's kind of out of nowhere, really. I've also been playing this one.
Oh my god, an N-Gage Bomberman game.
Very strange. It's actually the hardest Bomberman of all of them that I've played so far, because it's the only one where when you die, you lose every power-up. Like all of your bombs, all of your range on your bombs, it just goes back to having one bomb with one range. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
In order to keep your power-ups, you have to beat the bosses in a certain way, and it only tells you how to beat the first two bosses, like with the special way that you have to beat them in order to keep your power-ups. So
that's amazing. I actually just went to a pawn shop today, and I found a GameCube copy of Bomberman Jetters.
Oh yeah.
And they wanted like $5 for it, and I was like, well, that seems really cool. And they had it in that protective case, so I brought it up to the counter, and when they opened it up to me, they opened it up and the disc was missing.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, it's just so rough. I mean, that sucks. But so I did not wind up getting the case for $5. I have no idea what it's worth, but there wasn't even an instruction manual inside of it, so I was really disappointed in that. But I remember thinking that game was pretty fun, Bomberman Jetters, and yeah, I love the Bomberman series, and that's so cool that you mentioned that, because my daughter and I, just a couple weekends ago, we actually played a bunch of Saturn Bomberman.
I saw that, yeah. The kids react or whatever that you were doing.
I had her just like try it on her own and react to it, and she didn't like it so much. But she's like, I don't know, it's probably like a 6 out of 10. It's not that fun, and I hate that I die in one hit. And I'm like, it's Bomberman.
I think Bomberman is one of those series where you really have to just kind of like ease yourself into it, because I honestly didn't really like it for years. I just thought it was kind of dumb. I thought it takes forever to attack. I have to plan out all my attacks. This is kind of like slow and stupid. And then just one day I was like randomly listening to the music and I was like, I should play Bomberman. I wonder if it's a good game. And yeah, once you learn how to play it, it's actually a really good game, but you have to be willing to sit down and learn how to play it first.
Right.
I love old school gaming, isn't it?
Right. I loved playing each one of them because when you got used to one of them, I think the first one I really, really enjoyed was Bomberman 2 on the NES. And then I tried Super Bomberman, and then like Bomberman 93 and then 94 on the PC Engine. And those were like the same gameplay, it's just they kept adding things to it every single time. And then when we jumped into like the 32-bit, 64-bit generation, and there was Bomberman 64, I was like, what the hell is this?
This is too different.
This is way too different. This doesn't play like my old Bomberman games, and it was like Mario with bombs or whatever, and it just, I hated it at first, but after a while I kind of learned to love it, and some of the multiplayer was really well done on the 64-bit versions too. And yeah, the Bomberman series, it's a shame to see where it is right now with Konami just kind of holding on to it and doing nothing with it.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, maybe they'll make a pachinko machine.
If we're lucky.
Pretty much all they do nowadays.
If Konami's not bankrupt by the end of the year.
Oh, jeez.
They've got one for Goemon.
That's all they've made for Goemon in the past forever.
I know.
Stupid slot games.
So, okay, what I wanted to jump into real quick here, too, before we really jumped into all the import action that we were going to talk about this week, the Awesome Games Done Quick Expo is going on right now in Vegas this week. They run it from Sunday to Saturday, and a lot of it is done through people doing contributions and donations to their cancer research and the cancer foundation that they donate to. And I just wanted to mention it's going on right now. Everybody should check it out. It's at twitch.tv/gamesdonequick, all one word. And so far they've gotten $424,000 donated to them, which is really amazing. This whole last couple hours that we've been doing live here on YouTube, and if you're listening on Podomatic, obviously the event is over, but you can always check out all the videos that they put up on YouTube or even other streams that they do on Twitch on the Games Done Quick Twitch streams as well. But they've been doing a whole bunch of Mario games recently. Right now they're doing a Super Mario World run. I don't know what the exact run is. They're 10-minute runs. They're doing four people at the same time trying to run through it. They must be able to use warps or whatever right now, but it's really been cool. Some of their other events that they've been doing, especially in this like NES or 8-bit, 16-bit block here, they did Strider, they did Mr. Gimmick, which is amazing, beautiful game. Ninja Turtles, Ninja Gaiden 2, Ninja Gaiden 3, Batman, Blaster Master, Battletoads. So if you're into that at all, if you're into like speedrun, watching people speedruns, or just people that are really, really skilled in doing like really nice tricks and showing off some of the gameplay elements that maybe someone that maybe couldn't get very far in those types of levels, you should definitely check it out. I heard earlier today they did the Battletoads, the tunnel. What is that? The tunnel.
The bikes.
Yeah, the bike tunnel or whatever they call it.
Yeah,
somebody did it. Somebody did it blindfolded and made it to the warp.
Wow.
So it's just really cool tricks and stuff like that. That's really neat to see. And they did speed runs of it, and say they gave a person a half an hour to do it, and they were able to do it in 19 minutes. They'll wind up using up the last 10 minutes just to show off silly little tricks and stuff like that. But it's going on for the rest of the week. If you're not doing anything and you want to check out some really crazy video game footage, check out Games Done Quick. It's a really, really fun event, and one of these years I'm going to get out there and go there live. The crowds that they get to sit around these gamers are pretty huge now, and it would be fun to watch some of that stuff live. But I don't know. I figured I'd mention it. It's really neat.
I've seen a few things from it. I think I think that's where that Zelda. Isn't that where that guy tried to play through Ocarina of Time blindfolded?
Yes, it is.
And he got stuck like above everything and couldn't tell where he was.
Yep.
Yeah, that was funny.
That was crazy. Yeah, he was doing the method where he was using like all the sound cues, and he was just like doing the backflip. He was like hi hi hi, hi 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 hi, over and over again. It was really funny. It was neat, but I couldn't imagine putting that much time into that just to play it blindfolded. That's kind of crazy.
Can't imagine memorizing a game that thoroughly. Like,
yeah, that would be nuts. So okay, let's jump right into imports. Importing games kind of became something that was really, really popular, and it's just growing and growing as the industry continues to grow. Importing from Europe or Japan or wherever else in the world, games that we did not wind up getting here on our side of the ocean. For me, it started in like the early to mid '90s with the TurboGrafx 16 or PC Engine. The game library that the U.S. got was really drastically small compared to what they got overseas, and it was almost a requirement to import for. But what are some of the very first imports that you guys picked up in your gaming libraries?
who wants to go first? Do you want to go first? Should I go first? So the so I've been interested in imports for a very long time, actually. I remember back when I was about 12, I lived in New Mexico. There was a local game store called Replay Games, and one day they got a bunch of random Sega Saturn import games.
Nice.
And I had no idea what they were, and I still don't know what they were at all. All I vaguely remember is what some of the boxes looked like. They were probably dating sims, because they're all freaking dating sims.
Right.
But I really wanted to play them and see what they were like. So I've always kind of had an interest in imports. It also didn't help when I found out that the Famicom has expansion sound chips in some of the games, so the soundtracks are different and have more channels and sound way better, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think my first real foray into importing was actually with the Commodore 64. So in the U.S., of course, the Commodore 64 is actually a U.S.-made computer, but you can't really, don't quote me on this, because I wasn't around back in the early 80s when it was relevant, but I think in the U.S. it was popular, but the PC always kind of had a little more of an upper ground, right? And in Europe, though, it was this massive thing for a much longer period of time than in the U.S. And as a result, whereas we stopped making Commodore games maybe the early to mid 80s, they were making Commodore games well into the mid 90s and still make Commodore games nowadays, which are incredibly advanced for what the system should be able to do. So that's why I picked up one of these, which looks the exact same as a regular Commodore 64 outside of on the back, which you won't be able to see at all, but it's in German.
That's amazing.
It's just a PAL Commodore 64. It allows me to play crazy games that we never got here, like Mayhem and Monsterland, and freaking Enforcer, and let's see, see, now I'm on the spot, I can't think of any.
I know there was a ton of games on the Commodore, or maybe it was the Amiga, that Chris Hulsbeck did the soundtracks for, some of the Turrican games.
Great Guyana Sisters, yeah, he did the soundtrack to the original Turrican.
Yep.
Maybe other Turricans as well, but also Guyana Sisters, which is another one we never got, of course.
Right, yeah.
Really good game, actually. So yeah, that was my first big kind of investment into importing stuff. Now, the tricky thing about that, it's actually somewhat easy to import a Japanese game system, because usually you can just plug them in through Composite and they'll just work on a US TV.
Right,
That's the plugs are pretty much the same. Usually there's no problems. But the Commodore 64, or rather, a PAL signal doesn't really get interpreted by our TVs very well, especially if you want to use a tube TV.
Right.
Which, of course, is the only option for me. So,
right.
Getting the thing to work on a TV in the US was, for me, a matter of tracking down an old broadcast monitor, which actually works beautifully for it. Like, it doesn't have a TV tuner, so if I ever picked up a game system that was PAL that didn't have composite out, I wouldn't be able to play it unless I had a PAL VCR that I could plug into it. But for anything with composite, at least, or RGB or whatever, but not SCART, yeah, you can use like an old broadcast monitor. Could probably do SCART as well with an adapter, which is a plug that they had back in the day for that. But yeah, since then, I've also, Ari got me this last Christmas, which appears to be just a top loader NES, but it's actually an AV Famicom.
That is amazing.
And so I've been kind of dabbling in some import games for the Famicom. Some mother there. We got this, which is an RPG. It's called Lagrange Point. This game has one of the interesting things about, I already said about the Famicom expansion chips. This one actually has it's almost like an old PC Sound Blaster style sound chip, like the FM type one. So it's almost got like Sega Genesis type sound on the Famicom.
Amazing. Yeah, there are some Famicom games that have really, really great music.
Yeah, and then we got, of course, obligatory. This is Japanese Castlevania 3.
That's amazing.
VRC6 sound chip for extra fullness and amazingness.
Yep.
And then on top of that, I did manage to finally break into some import Saturn games. This is the version of Symphony of the Night.
Oh, awesome.
Which actually is the best deal I think I've ever found in the wild. She actually found it for $15.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm a pro.
It's pretty great. We've got this, which is Volk Slash. It's like a, how do you describe this game? It's almost like a shmup that somebody turned into a 3D game.
Yeah.
You kind of like you fly around and you like destroy targets and stuff like that. But it's
You get yelled at by anime babes.
Yeah, but it's got this really cool kind of pixel art look, but along with like low polygon 3D, so it just looks really great. We've got Chorokyu, which is like penny racers for the N64.
Oh man.
I couldn't even begin to describe this game. It's called Feng Shui Masters.
Oh my God, that game.
This game is the weirdest game.
Feng Shui Masters?
Yeah. Okay, so basically, you're in charge of moving the buildings in a town so that the town has feng shui. That's the best I can do. It makes no sense. It's really weird. The Saturn in Japan had a lot of really cool ports of old Sega arcade games that we never got, such as Galaxy Force 2.
That's
basically an arcade perfect port. Everyone says the Genesis version is so cool, but nah, gotta get it on Saturn. That one's weird. One of the few 3D platformers for the system. This one's called Ninja Jajamaru-kun Onigiri Ninpo Cho Gold. And yeah, it didn't get a whole lot of 3D platformers for some reason, but I had to track down all of the ones that did come out. This is another one. It's called Ninpen Manmaru. Actually, a good friend of mine fell in love with that game after I bought it. Decided to start speedrunning it, and I guess he owns a world record for it now. So
nice.
Got this Radiant Silver Gun.
That's beautiful.
Oh, this one's interesting. Real Sound, Cause No Regret. So this is a almost like a visual novel, but with no visuals. It's got no graphics whatsoever. So you boot it up, and it's just sound. And you play the entire game with just sound. It's actually meant to be a game for deaf people, or blind people, rather.
Sure.
Yeah, very, very strange stuff. Got obligatory random shmups. Shienryu? Yeah. That's pretty much it, yeah. Oh, this game's also really weird. This is why I like importing for the Saturn so much. This game's called Tactics Formula. It's a racing game with like F1 racing cars, but it's a tactical board game. So every move you spend like determining how fast you're gonna go, and that determines like how well you'll drift past the next corner and things like that. And you have to make sure that your path doesn't collide with other cars' paths.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's really strange. But yeah, import stuff. I love it. Weird games that we would never get in the US.
Of course, yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I remember the Saturn. Actually, that was one of the first times I'd ever seen like imports at a game shop here in the U.S. Like kind of like what you had mentioned, that you had seen Saturn games available as imports. And actually, it was a Software Etc. in locally here in Central Wisconsin that was offering Symphony of the Night or Dracula X for the Saturn, just as one of those like, oh yeah, the Saturn has like no new releases in like most of '98 or '97 and '98. So here's, Dracula X and a few other games, and God, it was so beautiful. Seeing that, I think that one in Thunder Force 5. Yeah, Thunder Force 5.
Yeah, 5. Oh man, I want that one really badly, especially the Saturn one because it looks so much better than the PlayStation one.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. There's a bunch of games that came out cross-platform on those, and anything that has any kind of 2D elements is almost always better on the Saturn.
Yeah,
it's really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So Ari, I know you were talking about a big collection of Famicom games. So
Super Fam.
Oh, Super Fam. Okay.
Yeah, I only just recently got the system. I was using a Game Genie with the top ripped off, but that doesn't work with everything. Such as with Fire Emblem. It would think you were trying to steal the cartridge and would not let you play it.
Oh.
That one's actually a remake of the original Fire Emblem for Famicom.
Oh, that's awesome.
I also like it because there's a bunch of games that didn't come out here, like Mario and Wario, which uses
Mario
mouse.
and Wario. That game's great.
Tales of Temptation, which didn't come out, and then it did later.
Oh, yep.
Star Ocean, which uses... it's like one of the largest games on the Super Nintendo. So
yeah, it's like a 64 meg. I think it's huge. It's got tons of voice.
Yeah, it does have voice acting. Yeah. Obligatory giant pile of Sailor Moon games because I'm weeb trash. Grounding Jewel obviously is Magical Poppin', which is a fantastic game where you run around and shoot magic and stuff.
Very cool.
Like I've got a whole mountain of them, but I only very recently, like I said, upgraded to the system, which is a very nice looking system actually. I am kind of picky with my systems, so finding one that wasn't yellow or cracked was very hard to do. And I actually got this one because a friend of mine is an even bigger collector than I am somehow, and he wanted a Satellaview, which is an add-on adapter for the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom that let you basically download games via satellite for the Super Nintendo. Obviously, it doesn't work anymore, but he still wanted to have one, and he already had a Super Famicom, so he wanted to split it with me so shipping didn't hurt quite as much, and nice. I obviously bought it. I also like weird stuff that never came out here, such as this beast called the PSX.
Oh, awesome.
It was a DVR system that Sony released between the life cycle of the PS2 and the PS3. It plays PS2 and PS1 games as well as, is a DVR. And it has a very early prototype for the PS3 home screen. So it'll have the icons that move across and the titles that go down, kind of like a PSP or a modern PS3. The only thing that sucks about this is the front, where you put the games. Controller ports are in the back, which makes no sense. So extension cords are basically necessary.
Yep.
But also has a 160 gigabyte hard drive, which is pretty stellar.
That's amazing.
So no memory cards needed.
Wow.
It's been nice to have an ability to play Japanese PS1 and PS2 games without having to modify the PS2s that we have, the barely working PS2s.
I know, right? Yeah.
Like free McBoot. But I've been able to play a lot of the original Taiko games, which they obviously put on a bunch of different games too. Like I've got the 3DS ones here.
Oh, awesome.
But it's basically Guitar Hero, but with a Taiko, because Japan. And it is very fun and silly. And the English one is awful, so you have to get the Japanese ones. Because I think everyone would rather play drums to Mario than Britney Spears.
Yeah, I love the Taiko games. Those are a lot of fun.
There's also a lot of issues with region locking in general. We're getting a lot farther with games not being region locked anymore, but systems like the Nintendo 3DS is still region locked, so I did have to import one so that I was able to play certain games that did not come out here, and there are quite a number of them.
That's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why they do that.
All of the Nintendo stuff, well, not the DS or the Game Boys, but most of their stuff is region locked. Even the Wii, which has some very unusual games like Captain Rainbow, which is a fantastic Nintendo IP, where Captain Rainbow is like a superhero that helps forlorn Nintendo IP characters find themselves again, such as Lil Mac gets fat, and Captain Rainbow helps him work out so he can be a boxer again, and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Never came out here.
Something that we were kind of talking about before the thing started, actually, that I think would be good to touch up on is the ease of actually running import games on certain systems. So like importing for the Sega Saturn is actually really easy, because you can basically just grab this little cartridge that plugs into the back called the ST key, or you can also get one that's an action replay that'll also let you do cheat codes and stuff like that. And after that, games that are PAL, games that are from Japan, games that are from the US, they'll all work perfectly fine on your US system.
Yep.
Which is incredibly simple compared to going through the effort of having to actually import a system, like hook it up to a special freaking broadcast monitor, things like that.
In general, it's a lot easier to play import games on disk because of the formatting issues. But also, because Japan is also NTSC, they're just NTSC-J, it is leaps and bounds easier to play Japanese cartridges than it is PAL cartridges, since they run at 60 hertz like we do instead of 50 hertz.
Yeah, usually you can just, I think I was saying usually you can just plug in a Japanese system with composite and it'll just work on a US TV, but PAL stuff, you have to have a TV that can understand a PAL signal.
Sometimes you don't even have to import the system, like with the Nintendo 64. I have a couple of import games, and before I got a Japanese 64 for no reason, because I'm never going to get a DV. You can just
What's going on?
Swap the backs on them, because the region locking is just squares that are moved.
Someone just joined?
Yep, I think we got another guy, Dan, joined. He was going to be a part of the show, but he was saying he was not able to make it, but maybe he's able to now. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't see him yet, but maybe he's trying to jump on. But anyway, regardless if he gets on or not, yeah, that is really crazy. I know that some of the earlier Japanese systems that came out, say like the PC Engine or even the original Famicom, those had the coax style of connections. And to a US TV, you have to have a TV that will go to like either 67 or 96, one of those two channels. we have this retro game show that we do, a few different shows. I work at the Midwest Gaming Classic in Milwaukee, and then LinkCon here in Central Wisconsin, and another one called EverCon that's actually next weekend. And every time we talk about what TVs we need to bring, I have to check to make sure they go up to channel 96 for the PC Engines and for the Famicoms, because I remember a few years we had ran into the issue where I started hooking everything up, and we have like a line of like 18 consoles, and by the time I got to the Famicom stuff, the 2 TVs that were left over didn't go to 96, so I'd have to go and switch them and pull them all over the place and figure out what's going on. But that's always something you run into. It's interesting how their channels, like the listings, were very different than what we got in the U.S. I think their channel was, for our 96, was their 1 or something like that. So.
That's basically the only, as far as I'm aware, the only difference between NTSC and NTSC-J is the way that like different frequencies were allocated to different channels.
Yep. Still much easier than trying to get the European with their the hertz and the.
If you try to pull up if you try to do anything with a PAL, what is it called, coax on a TV, it's not going to pick it up at all. You're just not going to see it. We got someone waving here.
Yeah.
His microphone is muted though.
If you try to plug in a composite signal that's PAL into a US TV that doesn't recognize it, you're just going to get a gray screen that's rolling really fast, and you're not going to be able to make any sense of it. But yeah, generally the rule is the newer the system is, the more, like, the easier it is for you to get it to play import games without any problems. Like, usually if you go back to stuff that's even as old as like the PS1, the Saturn, it's usually very easy. Super Nintendo, usually the games will work. There's a couple PAL games that won't play because of differences in the systems, and then the older you get, Commodore, barely anything is going to play on a US system that was made for PAL.
Right.
But there's a lot of very interesting stuff I've found, or in my opinion at least, that came out in Europe that we just did not get here, like the ZX Spectrum, the Amstrad CPC, the BBC Micro. There's like all these weird game platforms that just don't exist here, and so that's why.
Do you get any of the Retro Gamer magazine, or do you subscribe to that at all?
Okay. I've looked through a couple of them. Yeah, they go through that stuff.
When they start talking about like having nostalgia or like old connections to these old consoles, and they talk about the Spectrum or the ZX Spectrum and the other ones that they got and we completely missed out on it, I always feel really jealous because they look so amazing and the music is like really great if you go back and watch any videos and stuff. But hey, it looks like Dan Van Dam has joined the show. How you doing, Dan?
Oh man.
Oh man!
Let me tell you what. This is the one thing I do not miss about new technology: is setting the darn thing up. Like, I was sitting here for the past 5 minutes, literally grabbing my copy of Mysteria and throwing it at my screen, going work, and it said, "Oh, your camera does work. We're gonna start up." I was like, "Well, it's a good thing I wasn't sitting with my shirt off." Jeez.
Dan, I wanted to introduce you to Richard here. Richard is he's been on the show before. He's on here today. We've been talking about imports. Ooh. Nice.
So he just said Mystaria. This is Riglord. This is Riglord Saga 2, which is the sequel to Mystaria.
Oh, jeez. And we also have Ari on the show. We're basically right now we're just talking about imports and what kind of games. What was some of the first games that we ever imported for the game consoles that we love or play for. And I wanted to mention, too, the very first console that I ever imported games for was the... Blowing off your Famicom there. Very nice. Very nice. Was actually the PC Engine. Now, most people probably know that the TurboGrafx, when that came out in 1989, the system wound up lasting until roughly 1994, but during that time, we were getting, like, less and less games as the timeline of that system was going on. By the end there, it was like a game every month or maybe every 2 months, and we were pretty much starving for more games. And since I chose the TurboGrafx as my my console of choice during the 16-bit wars, it was like desperation time. And I have a game playing in the background right there. That's Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition that actually came out in Japan on the PC Engine. And at the time, this is 1993, the only home version of Street Fighter 2 was on the Super NES. And it was amazing. It was this brilliant game. And when Capcom had decided to license the game out to NEC in Japan, I was just so excited because I thought maybe that would give us a chance to get a TurboGrafx version of Street Fighter 2, and when it wound up not happening and they were like, nope, we're not releasing it in the US, that was the first game that I had to import. I just knew that I had to own it, and a lot of magazines like Electronic Gaming Monthly or Video Games and Computer Entertainment were basically having ads in the back of the magazine saying, this is how you can get your copy of Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, through companies like Game Dude or Gadgets and Games or there was another one. I think Die Hard Game Fan was another one where you could order imports through. And I wound up getting enough money saved up in my allowance and wound up ordering Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition with 2 6-button controllers, which was absolutely a necessity for the Turbo Duo at the time. And it's amazing. The game plays so well, and I don't know if there's necessarily a way that anybody could have saved like the TurboGrafx 16 or made the Turbo as popular as the PC Engine was in Japan. But man, when I first got to play that, and you got to play as the bosses for the first time, you got to play same character versus same character, and the graphics looked really crisp, and the music was great, and it was like, man, the Turbo is just as good as the Genesis and as the Super Nintendo is, and in some ways better than both. But man, it was so cool to be able to play that, and I don't know, had it come out in the U.S., would it have helped? I don't know, maybe not, but it would have been so cool to see. But that was the very first thing that I ever imported for myself, and that was like in 93, 94. But then that just brought on a huge addiction. I mean, Dracula X Rondo of Blood came out on the PC Engine. I picked that up. Ys 4, The Dawn of Ys, when that came out, I had to keep playing that because Ys Book 1 and 2 is like one of the best games I've ever played. And getting to continue that storyline. So many other games that we wound up not getting over here in the US, like sequels to Cosmic Fantasy 2 or Exile or any other working designs RPGs that they wound up translating and bringing out over here. Just tons and tons of games, and then that just pretty much was the gateway drug into the Sega Saturn, because the Saturn was almost in the exact same boat. The US got really snubbed when it came to a lot of really great releases that came out over there. You know, Street Fighter 03, all the King of Fighters games. Like they played identical to as how they played in the Neo Geo. Fatal Fury Special, Fatal Fury Real Bout Special, like just, you know, like you said, fighting games, just tons of fighting games, and I was importing them like a madman. And that's awesome because they were so much fun, and being able to play those games finally, even if they were in Japanese and didn't understand everything that was going on, it was always fun to find quirky games, fun to find games that are just so oddball and so different that you'd never see in the US, and that was like the best thing ever
like
for me.
JJ and Jeff and all that. The Japanese version's hysterical.
JJ and yeah, Kato-chan and Ken-chan versus.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't even think of the name. So I was like, what the hell's the name? It's like you said that. First thing quirky popped in my head was the Japanese version. That was just awesome.
Yeah, JJ and Jeff, they actually like changed a lot of the gameplay elements when they brought that over to the US because it was so.
Dirty.
It was very risky and very dirty to bring out in the US, but they changed a lot of it, and they actually changed some of the gameplay elements because of how it was. There was a lot of poop and fart jokes and all kinds of stuff, and they wound up turning it into like hairspray and I don't know, bird poop jokes or something. It was just like not the same, but it was still a lot of fun. But yeah, that's a whole nother episode. We can almost talk about how the censorship in the US when the games have come over here. But Dan, what are some games that you've played that you've imported for your game collection?
Ironically, the reason why I was dusting this off is because I was dusting something else off my desk. So I forgot this was like sitting at my desk. I was like, oh shit, just now, and I was like, I just cleaned it. So actually, the first thing I've actually imported was actually a gift. It was actually from Luke Morris 1. This is ironically the same thing I was just blowing. I sounded dirty again. I apologize. The thing I was actually dusting off here. That's
what you got from Luke a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was.
He sent me the PC Engine that I use.
I think did I mail that to you, or was it Alec John that sent that to you, or was it the other way around, or he just sent them to everybody? Can't remember.
I think Luke sent it to me, but he might have sent it to one of you guys to send them out or whatever. But yeah, that was really cool.
It was Luke. It was Luke sent it to you. All right. I was trying to.
Yep.
My brain was. I know I sent one out to Alec John, and then my brother. My brother was all like Captain
Yep.
Sleepy Pants or something. I don't
And
know.
all those Christmas gifts that he sent out that year were systems that he had like saved, like that he had found in dumpsters or on the side of the road or wherever in Japan, and he fixed them up to like perfect. Like the PC Engine that I got from him is you couldn't even tell that it was beat up, but he showed me before and after pictures, and it's amazing how he's fixed that up.
And that's a funny thing too, right? You can get that guy a bottle, like a brand new like soda, right? But he'd rather prefer a half-drunken bottle of soda as a metaphor. But that's the thing about him is like that's amazing. Like he'd rather you give him something that you know he would love to repair versus him actually having something brand new. So like for example, you
Right.
can like give him an unworking Xbox 360, and he'll look at that thing going, you know what, I could turn it into a toaster right now, and he does. He turns it right into a toaster, a brand new toaster.
He's a wizard with that stuff. It's amazing.
He is a wizard. It's like he'll turn that thing into a Neo Geo if we don't keep our mouths closed. Like he'll just do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fantastic what he does with those the boards, like arcade boards. I get envious because I'm terrible at soldering. Like, do not ask me to solder anything, a motherboard, a breadboard, anything. I'll like the whole house be on fire. But
I'm alright with changing capacitors that I can do, but otherwise I get
a battery, yeah, a battery in the Sega Saturn, I'm fine. I just pop that back in there and play some of that. Sorry, Luke, I coined a phrase. But yeah, first game I've actually imported, technically, was this game right here, Fantastic World, for the Famicom. This was actually the very first game I've gotten for the Famicom. Luke didn't really include any games. I didn't mind, getting the Famicom. I was like all giddy, and I was like, so I went to eBay, and eBay's like, don't I have a deal for you before the inflators come through? And I was like, what's going on, eBay? eBay's like, let me tell you something. This game's $6 from Japan. I was like, so I went, buy now. And my bank went, you don't got no money. I was like, yes, I do. And it goes, maybe you do. And so put me through, and they were like, oh, yes, send it to him right now. And then a month later, I got it in, and I went like this. I went, and I can't quite do the Flight of the Valkyrie right now, my voice, because I don't know why. There you go. That's my jambu. But yeah. Came with all this, and I was ecstatic. And at the same time, I was super jealous of the Japanese and their culture back in the day when they used to release packages or bundles or games in general. Just look at this.
Man,
Full color and everything. Like, all that in beautiful color. You look at a NES cartridge from yesteryear, it looks all right. I like the design of the NES cartridge, but sometimes you look at the Famicom cartridges, you just go, oh, man, that ain't right.
I think it's also something worth noting. The freaking, I don't know what it is about Japanese kids and their video games, but they took good care of that stuff. Like
Yes,
compared
they
to
did.
us, like you'll buy used NES games, and they'll be like half chewed up and the label's ripped off and it's got like vomit stains on it. But like every single Japanese game that I've ever bought has been like almost always complete in box with all the little inserts, perfect condition. All of the CDs are flawless. Like, I don't understand.
It's especially when parents like to write their kids' names on them or something, and
Yeah.
in Japan you don't see that very often. And if you ever do see writing on a cartridge in Japanese, it's like, oh wow, it's in Japanese.
Hawaii, oh my gosh, and you just leave it there, you don't even remove it. While you see some name, like, you'll see, like, Greg on there, it's like, you say to yourself, who the hell's Greg? Oh, Greg. You get like, the magic eraser at the time, people all use that, now you just don't kind of use that because it messes with the plastic, but you're like, Greg, I'm going to get you, Greg.
I think the worst condition game that I have is this one, Binary Land. On the top it's got some tape, and on the back it's got some writing. I don't know what that says, but it's like, if this was a US game, probably it would be like ripped in half, just exposed breadboard.
There's duct tape on it and some chewing gum.
It has like the name with a Sharpie.
You see MacGyver written on the back, you're like, what the?
The worst one I have is this one. So I think someone left it in a window because it's a little bit faded. And it's got one tiny rip right.
Is that the puzzle game?
No, this one.
The fighter?
Yeah, all of them basically are fighters. I do have the RPG as well, though. It's just awful. It's so bad.
Let's see that. What do we got?
Moving to
Show and Jump,
Oh, okay.
the RPG for that. At first, it was sort of like a blind purchase because I never heard it. Like I couldn't look up the name at the time because I couldn't obviously read the kanji, nor could I try to translate it. So I go, all right, what's this? And my friend goes, hey Dan, this is really cheap Famicom game on eBay. I was like, huh. Hey, there's Goku on here. It has to be a beat 'em up game. So I went, all right. So I bought it. And I put it in the system. Was like, cleaned it out and I put it in, and I was like, and I saw a bunch of kanji across the screen, and I saw this like Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest moving across the screen. And I was like, what are you all saying? And then Goku's like, Konnichiwa! And I was like, what is going on? You look good, Goku, but what is this? I can't read you. What is going on? I said JoJo. What was it?
There's a lot of really interesting crossover games in Japan as well. Like, we got a game into my store recently that is a Super Famicom cartridge that is a soccer game where you get to choose your teammates between Ultraman. I'm pretty sure there are Transformers. I think there are anime characters as well. And Godzilla. And you just combine your team of random Japanese comic book and anime characters and make them play soccer against each other.
That is really cool. One of my favorite like compilation or super team like type games is YY World.
Oh, yeah, the fighting game, huh?
Actually, it's
I'm
it's
thinking of
not.
something else.
Yeah, YY World 1 and 2 were like Konami super games where the Vic Viper, Simon Belmont, and Goemon,
Oh, the platformers, right?
and a couple other characters from the Konami universe were saving Konami from the evils of like the dark side, and Dracula and like the bad guy from Goemon were all coming together to destroy Konami, and so they all got together. And when you first start the game, you're just this generic superhero with like he has a rocket for a head or something like that, and he shoots lasers. And then you beat a Castlevania level, and you unlock Simon Belmont. And then you beat a Gradius level, and you unlock the Vic Viper, and it keeps going like that. And you get to switch through the characters all the way through the rest of the game. It's really, really good. They're two games. The second one, I think, is a little bit easier than the first one because I don't know if it was maybe made for kids or whatever, but they're both kind of cute 'em up or cute style, but they're both really, really fun. I didn't mean to say cute 'em up.
I would actually play a genre like that. I actually would play a genre like that.
Real genre.
Well, Air Zonk is a cute 'em up.
Yeah.
Dude, Arizona is the shit.
What's that?
It is. I can't afford it, but it's awesome.
KO Flying Squadron for the Sega CD. That's one.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Or any of the cotton games are.
Yeah, cotton games.
Yep.
But you were saying about YY World. That actually reminds me of a Dreamcast game. I think it's called Sega Gaga.
Sega Gaga. And the translation for that is on hold. The guys that were translating it to stop.
That's lame.
Yeah, I think they'll finish it someday, but it's actually kind of. I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off, but it's actually kind of playable in Japanese. It's not bad.
Yeah, I was just gonna say for those not in the know, it's actually kind of a. I think it's like a game dev simulator almost, but it basically
slash minigame slash RPG.
Yeah, RPG. And it's basically like about the downfall of Sega, which is weird because they were making it as they were dying.
It's so funny.
It's got like a bunch of their weird obscure characters, like Alex Kidd is working a retail job and like.
Yep.
Alex Kidd had to do something after his career in the Sega Master System, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Sega.
That's kind of the basis for Captain Rainbow. Like, all of the characters need new jobs.
Yeah.
There's a compilation one on the NES as well, from the creator of Sailor Moon. She obviously does other works as well. And all of the main characters from all of her series get together to try and save her because she got kidnapped.
That's awesome. I love. Truth be told, the Famicom is actually something that I've only recently got into in the last couple of years, just because I never had a Famicom and I never had a chance to really pick up on any of that. And the Super Famicom was a bit easier because you can just mod your Super Nintendo by ripping out a couple of little
tabs.
You're a horrible person.
That's the case. I'm Satan. I just ripped the tabs off one of them.
No. What did the poor Super Nintendo ever do to you?
Hey, I enjoyed it. It got some good games out of it, though. But no, I had actually had two systems. One of the systems I obviously got as a gift from my family, so I didn't mess with that one. But I got a second one after, like second hand, and I was kind of like looking at it, and I was looking over at my collection. I was like, I really want to play this game right here, but yet the damsel over there isn't ready. So I just said, you know what, I want to play the puzzle. So
Oh, is that Cosmo Gang, the video or whatever?
the puzzle.
Oh, the puzzle. Okay, I played the one called the video, where I think it's like a Galaga style shmup. That one's really good. I don't know if the puzzle is like that.
I just figure if you're gonna take up space with two Supers to have one of them play Super Famicom, may as well just buy a Super Famicom.
That's true.
That's true. I wind up running into a bunch of Super Nintendos, either via like Craigslist or pawn shops or even like garage sales and stuff like that. So I've got a few extra ones. So pulling the tabs out of one of them wasn't going to exactly be too mean. I was very gentle, and it's treated very nicely.
Yeah, I was quite delicate to mine as well. I mean, I just took it out to dinner. I told it was special. Then it started figuring out something was up after I started like pouring it the second glass of wine. After it sparked fire for a minute, but yeah, I mean, alcohol is actually pretty good for you. I mean, it's actually pretty good for the Super Nintendo.
Does that get the yellow out?
It does. It actually does. If you pour a little bit of red wine in there, it just swish around a little bit, and it'll get a tipsy. You'll start playing a Korean language you won't understand for 5 minutes, but it will probably
Cleans the
not have
contacts.
you tried it.
Red
Oh,
wine does not clean contacts.
It's alcohol.
So basically, yeah, I basically found out about the tab thing. I think Luke mentioned it or something, and I was like, it was like the second coming of Christ to me. I was like, oh, so I had all these games I got really cheap. So I was like, all right. So I got some pliers, got them out. I scooped it out like I was an ice cream man. I was like, I'm the ice cream man. Play some Family Incomes when I go by. So I just basically scooped all that crap out. And lo and behold, it saved me $35 on eBay.
Yep. Yeah, there's no like quick and easy way to do that with like a regular Famicom. You can't just like pull tabs out of the NES and pop them in like that. You have to either get
make adapters though.
Yeah, you can get an adapter, or
especially in early copies of Nintendo games.
I think the first Famicom that I got from Windy Games was like $15, and then the twin Fammy that he sold me just this last year at Lincoln, he gave me that for $100, and I was really excited about that. That was, I guess, a pretty good deal, and I'm able to play the Famicom disc games then and stuff like that. So I'm kind of stoked about that one.
This is actually one of the funny things. Holy crap, I totally forgot to mute something. Sorry. Go ahead, guys.
You were
two conversations at once, because my friend just said, "Hey Dan," and I was speaking it out loud. I was like, "You know what's really funny about that?" I was about to say out loud, I just showed you that, and sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, after that, after the Saturn, I kind of didn't get into much importing other than a little bit with the Dreamcast. I know we missed out on a few things with the Dreamcast. You were mentioning Sega Gaga. That's definitely a good one that we missed out on. And I'm trying to think here.
Shenmue 2.
Did you say Shenmue 2?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. That was a huge one. The one that came out, the Euro version came out, and I think you just needed a boot disc to play that one on the US Dreamcast, and that one played like wonderfully with subtitles. Yeah, there was a few games that had come out. Headhunter was another one that we missed out on, and a couple other Dreamcast games, but
the 360 actually. Oh, Ikaruga if you're talking Dreamcast.
Yep,
But,
that's another good one. Yep.
The 360 actually had quite a few good cave shooters, like bullet
Yes, it
hell type
did.
games that only came out in Japan, and a lot of them actually will play on a US system. They're like not region locked, but it's on a game by game basis. So some of them won't, some of them will.
Right. Yep. The 360 was like the shoot 'em up system for that last generation.
Yeah, it's weird because they only sold like 3 of them. in Japan.
I know, right? Yeah.
Japan's like, "What is that inferior toaster box? Get it out of here!" And it looks like, "I'll take care of you, and I'll love you, and I'll clean you, and I'll."
Yeah, they really tried in Japan to try to attract people. I think the Tales of Symphonia games that they had come out with, or whenever the Tales were, games that came out on the 360 in Japan, and they got exclusive rights to a couple of those games and some shoot 'em ups and all kinds of stuff, and Japan still just wouldn't have it.
I
Oh,
probably read on the internet that it burned people's houses down.
Yep.
Remember early on, they were like, "Look, guys, we like JRPGs. We've got Eternal Sonata and Eternal Sonata.
look
Is
at
that segue enough for you?
Hey, and Blue Dragon.
It's Eternal.
Good.
Blue
Dragon
Dragon's
was
fun.
good.
Blue Dragon's great. I love that
It's
game.
freaking hard at first until you get used to it. Like you just get used to the combat system.
Yep.
Like that thing just whips on you like Ninja Gaiden. It's like you remember Ninja Gaiden 2, you jump right into the game, it instantly starts beating the crap out of you. That's what it was for me at first. It's like, hey, oh my god! Dragon Ball Z, look at Kara. Oh god, what's that? Oh, be gentle. You know, that's generally what happened to me. Senpai was not a gentle master.
So the Xbox 360, speaking about that kind of flopped in Japan. I mean, anything Microsoft does, other than when they worked on the MSX in the 80s, has pretty much flopped in Japan. But what are some systems that, generally speaking, are perceived as really crappy systems that have flopped here in the US or in Japan or wherever, that you maybe could come up with a good argument for that was treated unfairly?
All right, so the Jaguar CD is obviously very delicate.
Oh my god,
The
delicate.
toilet. It's a toilet.
It's one way to put it.
Yeah, you drop it a foot and it bricks. But the Jag is not as bad as people give it credit for. Like, obviously it is not the greatest Atari system ever made. I'm sure opinions differ on what the greatest Atari system is, but I don't think Jag's on the top of anyone's list. But once you get AV cables, it's actually a really nice system. Picture quality is very nice. The original Rayman plays very well. It is
Yes, it
like
does.
it has an interesting color palette. It has an interesting sound. The controllers are awful, but technically there are two awful controllers to choose from.
Yeah, they did have that.
Some people.
The 6-button controller, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was all right. That was a pretty good one. Yeah, the D-pad isn't horrible on the Jag. It's just huge and it's weird, and the 12-button phone thing to phone a friend if you're in trouble, I guess. I don't know what that's. But
Usually,
Co-op support with it, you know.
usually the way I look at systems, like there's a couple different ways that I think you can classify a system as bad, and the most obvious way is what kind of games does it have? Because that's when it comes down to it, that's why you're buying a system. That's why you're playing on it. You're not just staring at a brick that's sitting next to your TV most of the time.
right.
Have you even plugged in a 360?
No, but yeah. So basically, my personal standard is if it's got like 5 exclusive games that are good or interesting, then it's not all that bad of a system.
Right.
So I think going by that definition, I've discovered that a lot of systems that I thought were going to be just awful actually have some decent stuff to play on them. Like the Jag has some good stuff to play on it. I haven't found 5 games for the CDI yet, but still looking. It's
For the
possible.
CDI, I don't. Well, exclusive games that'll be tough.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
do have you got the Zeldas and the Mario's that are they're
No.
not. They're not
Easy fun.
yeah. But Burn Cycle on the CDI is pretty good.
I'm still looking for the N-Gage as well. I found one decent one, the Bomberman game that I was holding up earlier.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Not that bad.
If you don't die.
I hated it when I first played it, but
Oh,
didn't
jeez,
play
I heard
more.
about that, by the way. I was laughing my ass off in my chair. And you're like, you know what? As soon as that music stopped playing, I started getting all sexy about it. I was like, I was like, that's all I could picture him was on a dance floor, and he looks at this damsel across the way, and it's, oh, that bomber girl there. And then some music starts playing, and he goes, you know what? She isn't so bad after all. She can move.
That's the story of the N-Gage.
That is the story of the N-Gage. The only
N-Gage.
decent game I thought I had was Tony Hawk.
There's
Technically has Super Monkey Ball as well.
Oh, that game is awful.
Okay, I take
I
that.
didn't say it had a good version. I just said it had it.
It was all right. Yeah.
They also
Not
have
on the N-Gage.
Settlers of Catan on the N-Gage. It's pretty
Yeah, I
good.
heard that one was interesting. I don't know. There's a lot to check out on the N-Gage. I have to see, but yeah, I mean, there's some systems where there's just like hardware flaws that prevent you from enjoying any of the games, like the Atari
True.
5200, where the controller is really,
Garbage.
really bad, and just nothing you do is going to get you around that bad controller. The buttons are like, they're a little bit better than microwave buttons. They're, yeah.
He's gonna break that stride, that's for sure. Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, there's games that seem like they would be fun. It's just if the controller wasn't rubbish.
Yeah, you look at the port of Miss Pac-Man on there. I was like, oh my god, that looks really good. I want to play. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, or like you boot up something like Ball Blazer, it's like, oh man, this is awesome. Or like Rescue on Fractalus, it's like, oh, I'm flying around in 3D, and then it's still.
It's just like you're flying to the right only. It's like, oh, this is fly dactyl to the right. Okay.
Which kind of leads me to the other way which you can judge a game console, which is in its actual hardware. Because there are some game consoles that just, on a hardware level, are incapable of playing games. And there's various reasons for that. Most of the time when they try to make a game console, the guts, the video processor, the sound stuff, all of that, they try to make it in such a way that it's easy to create games for it that run smoothly and that look nice, right? There's a few game consoles that have totally failed at this for some reason or another. Notable example, here we go.
Oh, God.
TigerGame.com. I don't know what the deal with the system is, but none of the games, they're all just 2D Game Boy looking games, right? They all run probably, let's say 10 to 2 frames per second. Highly variable.
You know, I'm offended by that because that was the best break I've ever had in my life.
The best break you've ever had.
You know what? My papers didn't move an inch, okay?
Yeah, and I don't understand, because obviously, go back, you play Game Boy games, they're all really smooth, you know. But yeah, there's a few examples like that. The N-Gage is almost kind of like that as well. Even Bomberman it's not really the smoothest game, so.
Sure.
At least the N-Gage tried to make itself better. The original model was more fun than system. You had to actually take the back off, take the battery out to change your game cartridge. But with the second one, they put it on the side. They made the D-pad a little bit better.
What else do we have? Oh, the successor to the Intellivision, the Mattel Hyperscan.
Oh God.
I've watched.
I'm drinking now. Oh.
I haven't actually played that, but I've seen the footage. It seems to have way too slow of a disk drive. Just takes forever to load these really basic games, and they just run really poorly. And it's like, okay, they had hardware to run games like this in like '92. Why is this thing struggling so much with this? So there's certain systems, maybe the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
It can't play games if it's red ringed.
Yeah, it's true.
They did fix that, though. We went to the Microsoft store to buy the Special Edition 360 to replace the one that obviously red-ringed. And so we got the Slim Elite model, which was blue, came with some Call of Duty nonsense. But I asked the representative at the store, what did you do to prevent the system from red-ringing? Is it going to red-ring on me? He's like, no, we fixed that. It doesn't red-ring anymore. I'm like, oh, well, what did they do to fix it? He's like, oh, we took out the red LED.
That
Wow.
man is a genius and
He
a
did say that.
scholar. Like, I want to shake his hand and kiss him on the cheek as I leave a blanket around his Xbox 360. That thing's catching cold.
He gave us the answer that he knew was going to have us part with lots of money. So, kudos to him.
I would have just bought this just because he said that out loud. I was like, you know what?
We bought it.
Yeah, we bought it, so it worked.
It's like, fuck it, okay, let's go. Let's go home and play this thing. Hope it doesn't turn off forever.
But yeah, I would say my argument would be that virtually any game console that can play games, such as not the Gamecom or not the Hyperscan, things that are actually capable of playing games, even if when they were new they didn't have a lot of good games going for them, theoretically they're able to be good game consoles, because at any point someone could be like, I'm going to develop some homebrew for this thing, and it's going to be the best games that ever came out on this thing.
Yep.
That is the one thing I'll give to the Jag. With the Jag CD, there's a very vibrant homebrew community, and there are a bunch of very good games made for it through the Jag CD.
Yeah,
that's true.
Jaguar homebrew would not exist if not for the Jaguar CD. At least not on the scale that it's at right now.
Yeah, there's Oh, sorry.
No, I was just thinking out loud. You just said that things at work, and I was thinking of the Sega 32X in my head. I was like, tempo.
It's got potential. I mean, they were going to do a 3D Sonic game on the thing, so who knows?
Yeah, I think when you're talking about systems that have like a lot of potential, but they didn't maybe create a whole bunch of games for it, or just passed on it too early on in its lifetime, I think you can think of systems like the Sega Master System. I know there's a lot of really good games for it, but I think a lot of people proved that it was a more capable system than the NES. And had they convinced some third-party developers to come over, like maybe a Konami could have made a Castlevania game, or if Tecmo had worked on a Ninja Gaiden or a Super Tecmo Bowl or something like that, to come over and just kind of show off how powerful the Master System actually was.
If you think the Master System did poorly, it's only because you live in the U.S.
Yeah,
I think they maybe still sell them new in Brazil, and it was popular long after the Genesis was in the United Kingdom.
Yeah,
That's
United
true.
Kingdom, they were doing pretty decent there. There
To
was
be fair,
actually
though,
one. Go ahead.
To be fair, though, in Brazil, they didn't make any new games for it. Or at least they didn't make any really good... They made really weird Chinese knockoff style games, but they didn't really make...
Yeah, they made the
quality
games.
titles. Yeah, exactly. They created content.
The DLC we always wanted.
Yeah, I know the Master System went on for a long time in Brazil. It was actually really impressive, but those were mostly ports of Game Gear games and other Master System games that we had already gotten. And I was mainly just talking about the U.S., talking about games systems that have flopped here or whatever. But like a system that I thought personally, and I was disappointed with it, was one that was not like capably up to snuff versus like all the other systems that had been released at the time, and that was the PC FX, which came out in Japan, which is basically a hentai / anime / RPG machine that was barely a step up from the PC Engine itself. It still ran off of like a 16-bit processor. It had really, really wonderful FMV capabilities, but the fact that NEC really thought that FMV was the way to go and to not put any kind of 3D graphics processor inside your console, to me was crazy, and it was basically incapable of competing with like the likes of the Saturn or even the Jaguar or even like the PlayStation, the 3DO, or any of those systems.
It's very unusual that they would come out with a system that was stuck in the world of 2D when everyone was looking forward to these new 3D systems that were brand new.
The big positive with that system is its capabilities with FMV. The load times on it are really amazing. It kicks the crap out of the PlayStation or even the Saturn at the time. They had fighting games that were FMV games similar to like Dragon's Lair, and the button commands that you would do were like seamless. You could actually like hit punch and it would do an anime cutscene for a punch, and then it would come back and you could hit kick and it would do kick. Like, it was really, really quick, and it was really, really well done. And I think that they were thinking that they could show people like, hey, this looks better than polygons, especially early 3D like 32-bit polygons. Like, this looks amazing. Like, this is totally the future of what it's going to be. And people didn't buy into it. And I loved playing. I have a PCFX. I think it's really fun to play games like Sparkling Feather, some of the other games that had come out for it that were really big. They did some Anime Freaks, Volume 1 through 8 on that were really cool. Playing an RPG, getting through some battles, and then getting a really beautiful anime cutscene that looks like, you know, about as good as the quality of like a Laserdisc at the time, the quality of anime cutscenes that you'd see. Yeah, it was really cool. I like the system, but I'm disappointed in it because like 63 games had come out for it, and barely any of them are any more than just like dating sims or hentai type games. There's some pretty bizarre things on it, but like the capabilities are just, that's probably the reason why it failed, is because it just can't compete with anything else.
Speaking of failed systems, the laser active.
Ooh.
You hurt me inside just now.
But is that really a failed system? Because it has backwards compatibility with all of the Turbo and all of the Genesis and Sega CD games.
If you have the module.
Yeah, only if you bought the extra thing to plug into it.
Well, you better buy them if you already spent the $1,200 for the system. You better buy the extra $400.
I'm sure it was a very good laser disc player.
Actually, it's not. It's terrible. It's not. It's a bad one.
It only works half the time.
It seems to run the movies okay, but you actually have to flip the discs on your own. It doesn't have an automatic like reader that flips over.
That's lame. The eject and flip halfway through.
It's a real basic like late 80s, early 90s laserdisc player with capabilities of playing TurboGrafx and.
That's your freaking weird disc.
The real future is laser discs inside of giant floppies.
Oh my God, CEDs.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, those are awful.
someone actually knows what that thing is.
Yeah.
What?
I actually have a whole bunch of them.
What?
I got this one because I couldn't help it because Tubby the Tuba is my childhood.
Wow. I don't know if you can see. Way up there on this side, right about there, is my CED player.
What?
I eventually am going to get a player just
And
so I
then,
can watch
and
it.
then on the other side, which is right where my finger is there, is my Laserdisc player.
We have one at the
which is-
store now, but it's $350, and I just can't swing that.
For a Laserdisc?
For the laser active.
Yeah.
Oh,
I got
Laser
the Genesis
Active, yeah.
and the Sega CD adapters with it, which I guess
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
much altogether, but it.
No, it's not bad. You should just convince them to sell it to you for cheap because, like, while they're sitting there not being turned on, the capacitors are bleeding into the motherboard and it's going to be worth nothing. And just say, like, I know how to fix that stuff.
They'll just make me fix it.
Oh, shit.
I'm the only one that knows how to solder.
Nice. No, yeah, Laser Active is really fun. It's a fun way to play the games, and then there's only like 3 or maybe 4 or 5 exclusive actual Laserdisc games that came out for it that are really, really expensive. But it's fun to play around with. I've seen a couple of those once, like the Midwest Gaming Classic. There's some guys that bring it to like the TurboGrafx Fest that we do. We play a turbo on it, and it's ridiculous. This huge, giant, ridiculous size. It's almost as big as the 5200. No.
Jeez. On the opposite end, though, of failed systems are ones that are almost too good to be home consoles that failed because they're just too expensive. Like, how many people have a Neo Geo AES? Nobody, because that shit was way too expensive when it came out. Even games now, they're still anywhere between $80 and $600 each.
Yep.
I think you'd have a difficult time making the argument that the Neo Geo AES was any kind of failure, though, because it was never meant for home consumption. It was meant to be sold to places like Blockbuster, where then you'd rent the system and a bunch of games and stuff.
And like hotels and stuff where they could put them in rooms and things
And
like
it
that.
was around for like a decade, so...
All I'm saying is SNK died, so...
Well, because the arcades died.
Do
There's
you
still arcades.
really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make
Well, now they're owned by Playmore, so everything's better now.
No, it isn't.
No, it isn't. I'm sorry.
You shouldn't lie to us like that. That hurt.
No,
more-
the
that hurt
Neo
more.
Geo. I think it was everything that SNK did after the Neo Geo was around. With like they did the Neo Geo 64, and then they partnered up with Sammy on the Atomus Wave for a while, and those are really neat games and really successful. But honestly, if they had just stuck it out with the regular Neo Geo during all that time, it probably would have been better for them.
Honestly, I think if they would have put a backlight in the Neo Geo Pocket Color, it would have rivaled the Nintendo Game Boy.
Oh my God!
It
Yes.
would have been the first thing other than the PSP, or probably before the PSP, to ever match them at all. Because it was a really great system and had a bunch of interesting games. Not that we got any of them, but
Most of them
Don't
are
say
we
English,
actually-
which is
We
weird.
actually got most of the Neo Geo Pocket games. I think there's only. I think the only
we
big one.
mostly got like casino games.
Casino
towards,
games and
towards
there was
the end.
a
Fighting
Zelda
games.
Yeah, fighting games.
There was the one big one that we missed out on was Capcom versus SNK Pocket Fighter, or no, Card 2 we missed out on. But we got like a ton of actually really good ones.
I don't really buy into that anything could have saved the Neo Geo Pocket Color or any game system of that time just because Pokemon.
They could have come up with their own version of
That's all.
Pokemon.
That's all I
Yokai
have to
Watch
say,
is
really.
beating us
Well,
Pokemon.
That's what Card Fighters Clash
Pokemon.
was. Card Fighters
But
Clash
it's not
was.
Pokemon. It's not the Pokemon.
To
See,
be fair,
you
the
can't make
card
that argument anymore.
yeah, the
Not
collect-
anymore, but you could back then. No one wanted their clones.
Well, to be fair, the collectible card game sort of spawned that off. It was then people paid attention a little bit more to the game than it.
They had the trifecta.
Yeah, that is.
They had the card game, they had the show, and they had the games.
Exactly, like they just threw it
Toys
right in
all
our
hurt.
face.
Nintendo was murdering with the freaking.
Yeah.
With
Murder's an
Pokemon.
understatement. It was an annihilation. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
even fair. It was like
The Neo Geo Pocket Color had abilities to connect to the Sega Dreamcast and transfer data from King of Fighters to King of Fighters R1 and R2, and
Oh yeah.
Capcom versus SNK2, or SNK1, you could transfer characters and data over to the Card Fighters Clash game to unlock hidden cards and things like that.
With the link
Yeah.
cable, you could actually fight together in real time too. Like if you had
Yes,
a copy
you
of
could.
Dallas Fighters.
Yep.
Like what can you do with the link cable on the Game Boy? Trade Pokemon.
Trade
What else
Pokemon.
can you do?
Trade Pokemon.
Literally
Trade
nothing.
it
Pokemon.
even worked.
Yeah.
No,
Hold
I-
on, let me trade this pterodactyl. Hold on, we got this.
Aerodactyl.
Pterodactyl, my nipples. I don't know, but yeah.
Next time I catch one, I'm gonna name it my nipples.
My
My
nipples.
nipples. Yes, I got my nipples. You see, I should allow them to be like, what the fuck is going on over there? Well, no. Damn, I'm actually gonna name my next character in a game my nipples, like for real, like.
Nice.
Hashtag my nipples if you're watching the stream.
Yeah,
Yellow
definitely.
swag nipples. There you go.
Tweet us live, hashtag my nipples. But I loved the Neo Geo Pocket. I don't think you could really argue anything against like the Neo Geo Pocket as being a failure either. I think that it was a really nice attempt on their part. I think the Neo Geo X that they came out with just a
That thing
couple
was
years
It's
ago,
garbage.
that is garbage, and I can't even think of defending that. That's garbage. But
Let's just
like,
take an SD card and reassign all the pins. Done.
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh, it loses battery in 5 seconds. My bad.
the
So-
Neo Geo Pocket Color was actually really good, like as far as build quality.
Oh yeah.
Like it was, I mean, sure, granted, the Game Boy at the end of the day, Game Boy Advance and all that, they just kicked the shit out of it. In hindsight, like it overshadowed it. But as a constructed system, like I never in my life, I have them sitting right there. Have you ever held a device next to the Game Boy that was like so damn solid? I was like,
Yep.
the reflection, like when you put the light to it, it actually took the light, absorbed it, and you could see it clear as day what you're looking at. Hell,
Yep.
I even went out to a car trip, like it was dark as hell outside, and the streetlights were actually reflecting off the screen perfectly. I was like, what? What were you doing when I was playing Pokemon and Zelda? You know, I was like, ugh.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure I've dropped mine in the bathtub and it still works. So
Yeah, the Neo Geo Pocket was a fantastic system. It only lost because of Pokemon.
mhm.
That's
Yeah. And that little clicky stick is a million
Oh, yeah.
times better.
Yeah, the
It's
micro switch
amazing.
in there. Oh my god! Like every time I hear it, I smile. I'm like, ah.
But
Well, I'm
yeah,
it right now. I need to hear it.
it's gonna go clicky stick. But yeah, it's interesting. I know we were talking about like what the worst or best Atari systems are. I don't hate the Atari Jaguar, but like there is a ton of really terrible games for it. But
There's
a
a bunch
hand,
of terrible games for everything.
I think the ratio is pretty terrible on the Jag, though. I think it's a little worse than other systems.
yeah, it doesn't have very much good stuff going for it, really.
I'd say that the system with the highest amount of crap games is the Wii, and the Wii sold more systems than the Xbox 360 or the PS3, and it is 90% shovelware.
But exactly, say it's 90% shovelware, but there was over 1,000 games for it. That means there's at least 100 games that are worth owning. So there you go. That's the Jag had what 93 or maybe 100 games. So there's like 10
I don't even
games.
know that many.
I don't even know. Yeah,
If
I
you're
don't know.
lucky, 10
On
games.
your hand, let's do it this way too. On your hand, how many games could you name off on the Wii that actually were good? I
On
could
the
probably
Wii?
name- yeah,
On the
easily.
Wii?
Oh, I could go on.
probably-
I could go on
Exactly.
for an hour. Yeah.
It's like
The
about
Jaguar, You got Iron Soldier 2, which was a CD game, I think.
Yeah.
And then you got Tempest 2000.
Rayman.
Rayman.
Raiden.
What's that game where you were
Raiden.
flying through space and it like moves you above and below the thing?
Cybermorph.
Cybermorph doesn't count.
That's a terrible game.
No, the game you were playing that you couldn't see at all because we didn't have AV cables and you bought.
Oh, that was Tempest.
Oh, never mind. That's good.
Tempest was
Tempest is a great
fantastic. Tempest 2000. Mm.
Yep.
Yeah, I
But
can't
after
think of
that,
any
and
others.
then Alien versus Predator is okay.
Yeah.
Doom,
Pretty
Wolfenstein.
decent.
The only way to play Doom is on the PC. It's the only way to play Doom.
PC,
I
Xbox.
The
don't
only
buy
way to
any
play Duke Nukem
crappy ports of
is on the
Doom.
GameCom, where he only has one line because they don't have enough memory to give him any more words. So all he says, "Damn."
Damn.
Damn,
That's
I'm
it.
looking good.
He knows
Nope, not
he's
even that.
he knows he's stuck in a world of shit with the GameCom, so all he can say is damn.
Damn, I'm looking good.
Damn. No,
He doesn't
not
even
I'm
say I'm
looking
looking good.
because he
Just-
knows he's not looking good.
Just damn.
He
That's
knows
it.
he's on the GameCom. So he just
Damn.
says damn.
$3.99. Damn.
Kind of sob a little bit when he says it.
You hear him crying a little bit when he says it out loud.
Yeah.
He sounds like Will Smith when he says it. Sounds like a little bit of Will Smith mixed in with Eddie Murphy. Damn, I didn't get no bop.
Yeah. But if you had to defend the Jag, you could say there are a ton of like fun, quirky games that are just so ridiculous. I could think of Kasumi Ninja or Ultra Vortek that are just not the best games at all. They're terrible Mortal Kombat knockoffs, but they're so fun. Like at a party, you can just have a ton of fun playing those games.
It's true.
And there's a lot of games like that. I think there's Atari Karts or there's like Checkered Flag that are just like, oh, try this. It's terrible, you know, and like it'll be fun because it's just like I can't believe how bad this is.
Drive.
Oh my god.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. But like
Yeah,
the CDI's got a couple games that are in there okay.
We want to talk about game systems that really get an unfair reputation. The Virtual Boy.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Man, I gotta say, I love the Virtual Boy.
I love it,
Hell yes.
but my neck doesn't love it. That's
I
the only
think-
thing I'll say. I
That's
love
the
it.
thing. It is a handheld system. It is not meant to be played for hours at a time.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of the device, if they would actually put it into a handheld, I would have been like, okay, just played it, whatever.
It's a really stupid idea for a game console. Like, I don't know
It is. I mean,
what Gunpei Yokoi was thinking when he drew that thing up, but
Yeah.
the
I guess
games on it
I
are
guess-
actually really good.
good games. Hardware isn't so good.
Wario Land is amazing.
It is. It's
Red Alarm, really good.
It
Red
actually
Alarm's
is.
good. Wario Land.
Mario
Mario
Tennis.
Boxer, Mario Tennis.
It looks impressive for when it came out as well.
Right.
Like if you had
Very
it
clean
adjusted
sprites,
correctly,
yeah.
it was 3D.
Yeah,
And
it's
if
the
you didn't
most convincing 3D effective for its time. I mean,
and if you didn't sit there for hours, you didn't get headaches.
I didn't get headaches even if I did sit there for hours.
I remember like putting my head into the Virtual Boy and then putting headphones on and playing it and being like really fully submerged into the game, like really more than I've ever been in before that time. And I think I did too. I spent a good chunk of time playing. I probably spent an hour or two playing at a time, and I never really got headaches from it, but I did feel like, whoa, like pulling your head out and everything feels like
Yeah.
sweaty and you got that red line around your eyes.
After 2
Like,
hours of your
stupid
face, after 2 hours of your face and the thing, you take it out, it feels like you woke up. You're like,
Pouring
"Yeah."
with sweat.
that's
Like
a
coffee.
system. As far as like home brews are going on, someone just recently came up with a Faceball 2000 for it, and then someone did Street Fighter on it, Street Fighter 2, and there is a new EverDrive that just came out for it, so you can download the games, put them on an SD card, pop it in there, and then play all the games. I think there was only 17 or 18 commercial Virtual Boy games, but I mean, speaking of how the ratio of good to crap on
There's
some
a lot of
consoles,
good ones. Like,
There's a
there's
lot of
only
good
like
ones.
one really unplayable game on the Virtual Boy, and that's Waterworld. I mean, all the rest are
Yeah.
really fun.
it's a Nintendo console. I mean,
The only problem with the Virtual Boy is that it was made really poorly.
yeah, they're all broken.
Like instead of soldering
Yeah.
on the ribbon cables, they're just like, hot glue will do. And
Or
it doesn't.
chewing gum, whatever that is.
yeah. Yeah, you
Yeah,
basically have to fix any Virtual Boy that you buy. They're all going to be broken at this point.
Just put it in an oven. It's fine.
Just bake oven that shit, just get it going.
It won't even fit in an easy bake oven. It's the size of an easy bake oven.
We
You
want to
know,
talk
back
about.
when I was a boy, easy bake ovens as big as the candy bars, which was as big as my head. Okay. Okay, I'm having an
I have an
imaginary
easy bake
childhood.
But actually, we want to talk about like favorite overlooked game systems that are considered failures. One of my favorite ones is the most overlooked Nintendo console. Can anyone take a guess as to what it is?
The
you already know it.
GameCube.
Okay.
No.
Good guess.
GameCube was.
Everyone shit on the GameCube when it first came
The
out,
GameCube
and now
was very
everyone's
good.
like, "Oh, I loved GameCube the whole
It's
time,"
better.
and it's like, "No, you didn't."
It had better, the thing was, it had better graphics than the PS2, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, and everyone thought it was like this kiddie system, but graphics as good as the Xbox.
Yeah,
almost.
fucking
When Twilight
Resident
Princess
Evil.
first came out, I declared that was my favorite Zelda game at the time, and I legitimately got bullied in school because everyone was like, "That game's a shit game. GameCube's a shit system. Shut up, you're gay."
You know what? This is the first time I ever went Richard Pryor on somebody when someone insulted the GameCube around me in school. Like they were talking about the GameCube and they were saying, "Oh yeah, my Xbox, I'm playing Halo with it." And so I'm sitting there quiet to myself. They go, "What's your favorite game?" "Oh yeah, Star Fox Adventures," because at the time it was actually pretty fun. Still kind of is. And so they go, "Oh, well, didn't your family buy you an Xbox?" I said, "No, I'm not a snobby ass rich kid. What the hell is your point?" And so the kid goes, "What's the matter? You don't like FPS shooters?" "No, I just like good FPS shooters."
Oh.
Snap, take that, Halo.
I mean, Halo is a good shooter, but I just said it to piss him off. You know?
So now
yeah,
the
Halo's
same
alright.
people that I went to school with that totally pooped all over the GameCube and over Twilight Princess are all like posting pictures on Facebook, like, "Oh, look what I got! Oh, my childhood! I loved this game the whole time." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"You are the fungus between my toes."
People back in the days all like, "Ooh, Zelda." Ugh.
Oh.
Nowadays they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna pay $50 for Wind Waker, no problem. That
Yeah.
game is great."
It's
Oh, what
just
happened?
like, yeah, it's just like back in the day, right? You had Slipknot. Everyone knows Slipknot. You know, masks and all that shit. People don't like the loud noises, whatever. So you had a camp. You had people who liked Metallica, liked Iron Maiden and all that, and they felt like they were the pure metalists, right? And they were like, yeah, bring your dada to the slot, and all that shit, right? And so then the people heard Slipknot and they go, "You fucking pussies," And they talk so much shit, these people. Now I actually see them on Facebook posting fucking Slipknot, Corey, and all that shit, and I'm less like,
Okay.
listen to the Korn and shit. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this new metal must be good now, huh?
So, Rich, what is the most underrated Nintendo system?
Oh, right. Yeah. Got totally sidetracked by the GameCube there. No, it's the Pokemon Mini.
No one even knows.
Yeah.
I know.
So
what it is.
basically, it came out.
No, I didn't even know that was considered a console, though.
It
has
is
cartridges.
a console. It's a full-fledged, tiny little game console with its own tiny little cartridges that are completely like it's got slightly worse graphics than the original Game Boy, slightly worse sound than the original Game Boy, but it's a full-fledged game system with unique, exclusive games, and some of them are really good. It's got like
Really expensive too.
yeah, they're stupid expensive because they're really rare now. It's got a couple versions of Tetris with like weird additions that I'm not overly familiar with. It's got like a pinball type game, but it's not actually pinball because you're basically just a little diglet at the bottom where the ball falls into, and you just like bump this stuff up and.
Interesting.
And it's really weird. Oh, it's also got this really great little 2D platformer racing game, where basically you just like there's like all these obstacles you have to jump over and like grass that you run slower through, and there's different paths through it, and you just race another Pokemon through it, and it's really fun. God, what is it called? Pichu Brothers Racing, Vinny something or another. But
Yeah.
Vinny to some bowling or something.
yeah, it's one of those game systems that most people don't even know exists, but it's just this fantastic little. It's got your standard B and A button. It's got a plus pad on the side. It's got a little like a trigger, like a C button, I think. And then it also has an accelerometer. which I believe, I might be wrong on this, but I think that makes it the first game console to have an accelerometer.
That's
Nothing
pretty
really,
crazy.
nothing really used it that much. You basically just shook the system, and it would detect if you were shaking it, and then be like, "Oh, you win. Good job." Um, but
I have the green one over there somewhere.
yeah, that's the one I have too. Green one. Yeah, they're like fantastic little systems. I love the thing. It's the tiniest little portable game system too. So.
Speaking of new versions of Tetris, I believe it's the 3DO that you have that 3D top-down Tetris game on.
Oh, Genesis block app
Oh, yeah, that game's good.
and Lynx. It's a 3D version of Tetris.
I was hoping to have one thing to say about the 3DO, but never mind, it sucks.
A 3DO? No.
The only time
3DO
was
is
alright.
nice. 3DO is
Need for
nice.
Speed. Need for Speed.
The Need
Skating.
for the Speed.
The Road and Track presents the Need for the Speed.
Yes.
The Need for Speed. That and Road Rash, and there was a
My
couple
problem
other
is I
games.
tried to play point-and-click adventures on it, and
Huh.
they take so long to load. It's just,
Yeah, they do.
oh my god.
Yeah, after I seen examples of that, I was very grateful to have an MS-DOS computer at the time.
It's
Yeah,
like trying
right.
to play putt-putt goes to the parade, and it's like,
Putt needs some gas. That's what I fucking know. Jesus Christ, Putt. You and freaking Spy Fox need to hurry your ass up. I got all day here. I need to fucking learn something.
like
go
if the
over
game
to-
would load at the time that it should, the game would probably take like 15 minutes to beat. But since you have to factor in the loading times of the 3DO, it took like an hour and a half.
See,
Wow.
but the 3DO's strong point was in its weird early 3D games like PO'd, like the
Mhm.
Need for Speed, like Blade. What is it, Blade Force?
I think
it's
Blade
called
Force,
Blade
yeah.
Force, yeah. Just
That and the game show Twisted.
I never actually played that one. I
It's pretty
haven't seen
awesome.
it though. Yeah.
It's
The
pretty
only
awesome.
game show I will play is You Don't Know Jack.
It's
You know
similar
what?
to that.
I got really
That's
sick and
weird.
tired of getting screwed in that game.
Just one little quick thing too. I wanted to touch on. We were talking a little bit ago about the Neo Geo Pocket Color, and I don't think that was a failure, and I think that's something that could be argued for a while. I think there was a handheld that came out that was only available in Japan around that same
Wonder
time.
Swan.
Wonder Swan.
Yeah, the Wonder Swan, which in my opinion is a far less impressive handheld compared to the Neo Geo Pocket Color, or the Neo Geo Pocket, the original Neo Geo Pocket as well, but there was a lot of cool stuff. I think the best thing that I ever played on the Wonder Swan was the Ghosts and Goblins game, or the Ghouls and Ghosts game that came out for it. That was actually really well done. But we are actually at about an hour and a half now, and this hour and a half really, really flew by, and I want to thank you guys so much for being a part of the show. Ari and Dan Van Dam himself and Richard being on the show. That was a lot of fun. If you guys want to give us a one little last send-off, 10 seconds or less each, to plug your PayPal link or whatever you want to do.
Come on,
So-
everybody, sign up for my Patreons. Oh, I don't even have one.
Oh God, Patreons, yeah, that stuff. Yeah.
That's
So go ahead.
on Patreon.
Cat, stop licking the Super Nintendo.
Oh my!
Oh my, is that code word for something?
No,
No,
he's
that's
literally
code word
sitting
for
there
our
and
cat
licking the
is licking
Super
our Super
Nintendo.
We were talking about plugging something, but jeez, Cat, jeez,
So,
Cat, have some respect.
I'm Kulor. I make chip tunes. They're on my Twitter. It's right there. You can give me the YouTubes.
Danny?
My name is Danny Van Dam. You can catch me on Twitter at Dan Van Dam. You can catch me also on Twitter as well as T Daily Gamepad. Don't ask me why I didn't say the Daily Gamepad. And you can also catch me on YouTube at The Real Agrabah or Dan Van Dam, whatever you wish. And the side note, I have a bag of gingerbread Oreos here. That's all I can say.
Ooh,
And plus,
I like that.
They're pretty decent.
All right, and Ari?
I technically have social media, but I think the last time I updated my Twitter was literal years ago. But I do have Pogs in a spaceship
Ooh, that's
A
awesome.
plus plus. A plus plus right there. That's
because
it.
people still have Pogs. No, they don't. Wow.
Wowzers, that's impressive. I like that.
I think is that people when they discover realized they had Pogs. It's a whole new adventure. They're like, oh my god, I got a O.J. Simpson Pog.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys for sharing those. Those are very, very important things that I just learned about you guys. But one thing I'm ashamed of is that no one mentioned plumbers don't wear ties for the CDI. That could have been an entire hour conversation right there.
And
My
killing.
friend actually just bought the copy we've had at the store for 4 years, 3 years, a long ass time. He finally bought it. I'm like, why did you buy this? He promised his mom it wasn't porn.
Oh, it's
This
not.
is Bible Black, Mom, I promise.
It's not. It's to be fair.
It's better
Bad.
than porn. It's so interactive.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of the Game Hump. Don't forget you can check us out on Facebook.com/gamehuggers. You can also check us on Podomatic.com/gamehuggers as well. Thank you so much. Follow me on the Twitters at _Joshua Turbo, which is there at _Joshua Turbo. Don't forget the underscore, as it is the most important underscore in all of the internet. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Subscribe or we will punish you.
Subscribe.
I'm gonna take my pants off if you don't subscribe.
Oh my God. Oh my. Oh my. Quick, stop it. End the show.